Good evening and welcome to Obsessed Garage. This is my dedicated wash bay at my house here in Central Florida, and we're about to embark on a journey together in dialing in my newly acquired, new to me, 2013 BMW M3. It's Le Mans Blue, has 32,000 miles on it. So it was owned by someone, looks pretty clear to me. It's been through a bunch of automatic car washes, so the paint is rather scratched and swirled. Nothing that I don't think can be repaired. There have been some repainted panels on the car. Apparently it was in some sort of an accident, so we'll be able to see how that paint reacts, if that section or that repainted section reacts a little differently to the rest of the body panels. But what I'm gonna do is take you through a process, or I guess I should say my process. I don't know that I would call this the definitive. I certainly wouldn't call it the definitive process. This is just how I do it. This is how I take you through taking care of my car. I have some experience, I've been trained some, but ultimately, again, this is subjective. This is just how I do and how I take care of and maintain my car. And I know that that many of us, myself included, have benefited from me sharing this process. And if you're new here, this is really how this whole thing got started. I had been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. I've been doing this kind of stuff out in my garage by myself. I set a camera up, started talking to it, and shared the process with my 2014 Carrera S in short. So if you go way back to the channel in the beginning, you'll see some really blurry, really out of focus, really poor audio videos that I made of the Carrera S. And then the very first video series was where I did a multi-part protection series was of my 2014 Sapphire Blue GT3. So I've done many of these processes with many of the cars that I've had. And so I'm gonna take you through that from start to finish. We're gonna do wheels are going to be more of a cleaning rather than a detailing. They're not worth correcting or protecting because they're going to be refinished, or in my case, going to be replaced. But we'll do wheels and tires. We're going to do full decontamination. That's the products that I have behind me here. So we're going to decontaminate the paint. That decontamination process has several steps. First is to remove the waxes and sealants by using a prep type, or what I call a decontamination soap, followed with an iron removal solution. And then we move into the step of mechanical decontamination. I'm probably going to have to use a clay bar on this car instead of the auto scrub product, because it's really the surface contaminants are really heavy. You'll be able to hear that. I'll run my hand across the clean car as we work through that process. From there, we're going to drive it over, and I'll take it over to my facility, which is a mile from here. I'll wipe it down, assess it, start to do test panels. Then we'll start to work on polishing. My guess is it's going to take a few steps to correct it out, and then finish it, and then we're going to do my tried and true two-step, which would be a layer of polymer sealant from Menzerna, or actually I guess it's Jescar Powerlock Plus, followed with Colonite 845. We'll do a couple layers there, followed with a topping of Bead Maker, which is a monomer polymer sealant as well. So we're going sealant, wax, or a hybrid wax, sealant on top of that as our sacrificial layer. So we're going to be showing and taking you through that process and how that all goes. We'll also be protecting the glass. We'll be taking care of the trim as well. So I'm going to go through that whole process, talk to you about coating versus wax, and why and when and how and all of that stuff. So I'm going to take you through this series from start to finish. For those of you who want to watch the long format stuff, I'm happy to share it. But what I'm going to do a little differently this time, for those of you who may have not as much of a desire to sit and listen to me telling stories and talking about my life and what's going on with cars and things like that. For those of you who aren't interested in that, after the series is done, I'm gonna take and create a summary of the process and do probably a 20-minute video of the hours of process that we went through, just to summarize, show you the start, middle, and end result, and make it a little bit simpler, a little bit more digestible. So I'm going to do that in this series. So let's get started. I'm gonna set the camera up. I'm gonna go out and clean the wheels. Maybe the wheels will be more of me sort of talking you through an update on the car. And for those of you who haven't been watching this whole process, you may wanna skip to a little further in. I'm not sure if it'll be in this video or the second video. May want to skip a little further ahead and get into the meat of the decontamination process. So anyway, thanks for being here. If you're new here, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this type of format where I really let you into my garage. I want this to be like I've invited you over, you're sitting on a stool next to me and just hanging out, and we're chatting about the process. Well, all me chatting and you listening. So anyway, thanks for watching this. Let's roll. I haven't done this in a while and talked you through all the stuff. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull and have a bunch of different asides on product use in this video series, just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm using and what's going on. At my headquarters, I have the custom install solution that I now am a provider of. I sell to people. People have been buying it like crazy. It's really been pretty incredible. Where we have a Kranzle pressure washer on a shelf, and then we have a hose reel, and under that we have the on-wall CR Spotless system. This is quite a bit more stout. This is a much bigger, bulkier, heftier, more expensive unit. But what I have here, this actually in this format no longer exists. This is called the Kranzle KWS700TS. It's 2,800 PSI at 2.8 gallons per minute. Those are the rated specs, and these are true specs. This machine here, this whole setup was $4,500 for just this unit that I bought, 3 years ago now. This is the workhorse that we'll be using out here in the decon and the cleaning process of the wheels. This is fed by either tap water, which we'll have on to start, so I have the valve open for tap water, or deionized water, which we'll use as we start to decontaminate. So as we start to clay and auto scrub the car, we're going to be using decontamination water, or I'm sorry, deionized water to wash. So that's the system we use. That feeds, if you can see out here, that feeds a Mosmatic boom pole. Sorry, the lights are going to blow this out a little bit. But I have a 7-foot 6-inch boom pole out here in the wash bay, and then that feeds this Mosmatic gun and wand through a 13-foot hose. These are roughly 11-foot ceilings, just shy of 11 feet. So that gun and wand are holstered in a Mosmatic stainless wand holder, which I have mounted. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we do the wheels. If you've watched a lot of my stuff, you're familiar with the videos, you've seen the Kranzle unit. Many of you, thousands of you, have bought that from me. The K1122, which is the cart model, that's a 2.1 gallon per minute, 14 or 1500 PSI pressure washer. So there are diminishing returns per cost. So again, this is a much more stout. This draws, I think, 25 amps. So I have a 30 amp dedicated line to this, and there are a couple of disadvantages to this pressure washer versus the smaller one. When I turn it on, it's going to be quite a bit louder, and it runs for 30 seconds. Whereas the other units that I have, the 1322, the 1122, are much simpler, much quieter. They also have a total stop. When you release the trigger, they have a pressure switch that senses and turns it off. So you'll hear, I'm standing next to this, I power it up. Based on how I'm talking, it's quite a bit louder than the other units, which are darn near whisper quiet. So this is a disadvantage to this larger, more stout machine. It does make more noise. So I realize, in fact, it's just dawned on me a few minutes ago as I started the video, that this car has brought and will probably bring a lot of newer people to the channel, to watching me do this stuff. Many of you have been around for years watching me do this exact same process. I'm not going to do this any differently, but what I'm going to do is maybe review some of the things that I've talked more about in the past, just to update those new people on things like this Mosmatic gun or the buckets or the wheel cleaner or something like that. So I'm going to attempt to take a little bit more time, be a little bit more intentional in this series, talking you through what I'm using and why I chose it, and what the intended outcome is of using the product. And so I know it'll be a review for some of you. I'll also mention it is extremely helpful to me if you support me. I mean, pretty much every product I'm going to be talking about in this video series, if I don't have it in the store, I will. So if you could hook me up, that would be cool too. I want to do more of this. I really enjoy it. So I'd be psyched if you'd check out obsessedgarage.com. I've curated all this stuff and tried to make it as simple as possible to order it. I know shipping, you have to pay for it in my store. That's the one ask for hopefully providing you a little bit of entertainment, but mainly just the information. So thanks for that in advance. So we're going to clean and wash the wheels here. I'm going to take a little bit less care than I would if this was a brand new car. We'd be doing wheels off, full polishing if I needed to. In fact, I don't know that I've ever really polished wheels, but we would do a full decon and then a coating of some sort. I'm not going to do that on these because, and I know they probably look great from your vantage point on camera, but they're really scratched, gouged, rusted, chipped, curbed, and so these wheels aren't going to last very long on the car, so we'll be replacing this. So I'm not going to go through the process. I'll more talk to you about it as I'm cleaning them up here. So this is a Mosmatic gun. Mosmatic is really slow to get things. They're a small company. This is my latest prototype. I still am waiting for them to make a 6.0 size nozzle with the new nozzle on the end here, even for me in prototype form. But this is a 20 degree, 20-inch bent wand, which is amazing. I have all quick disconnects on the end, and then we switch to short gun. This is the Mosmatic swiveling gun. Again, this is my prototype with the shortened connection. So now we've reduced a bunch of bulk. Back in the day when I first started this, I had almost 4 inches of connections between swivel and then quick disconnects and then the connection to the hose. And so I've seen quite a bit of improvement in this over the years. But the main focus, the main reason why this is great is the swiveling capability, and we're under pressure here. When you're under pressure, the quick disconnect, the 3/8 inch connection won't swivel, and this hose would get all bound up. I have a 6.0 size nozzle on here to combat some of the high pressure that I'm getting from my Kranzle pressure washer. So even though that's 2,800 PSI, I'm actually getting 900 PSI out of the tip, which is my preferred pressure for washing a car, in a 40-degree pattern. I really like to blow out the rotor, gets all the dust off the dust shield in the back. These are pretty dust heavy brakes. I'm going to be transitioning this car to Brembo's at some point. This is Adam's wheel cleaner. For a really long time I was using Nexet ColorTech. I ran into issues getting it here, combined with lots of people really having a difficult time with the smell. This does have a little bit of a scent to it, but it's not terrible. Wheel cleaners in general, I like them to have some iron removal product in them. In this process here, I'm going to actually spice it up a little bit. I'm going to take some Carpro Iron X and I'm going to spray this on top of my wheel cleaner to really work on removing as much iron as possible. Again, even though I'm not going to worry about these wheels longer term. They're going to be on here for a little while. I've got to figure out the suspension, and so I want to clean it up a little bit. So that's a little trick that I've rarely used. Get my wheel cleaner to activate a little bit more. I'll a lot of times spray some iron remover on it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to clean it, and then I'm going to spray some more iron remover on it, and then I'll spray it off. This is a Microfiber Madness Incredibrush, which fits nicely in the competition package BMW wheels. So if you do have these wheels, this is a really good, really gentle brush. It doesn't fit behind the caliper, but I like this a lot for as long as it fits, which it fits behind my 911, fits behind most cars that I've had, fit behind the GT350. So notice how much more purple we get by adding a little bit of concentrated iron removing solution. I'm really interested to see how much we can see the iron on the paint when we get to that. I almost want to skip the darn wheels. I almost did. Skip the wheels and go right to the actual decontamination process. I've never been so excited to clay bar a car in my life, just to see the before and after. I've never had a car that it was in this bad a shape before. And I know it's hard. The car is decent, you know, for a regular weekend car guy washing their car, it's decent. But for even a let's call it someone who's moderately in the know as a detailer, or again, I wouldn't call it a detailer, but somebody who knows a little bit about how, let's say you have a griot's polisher and you kind of know what paint is supposed to look like. It's like a regular weekend car washed type car. It's that level. I promised myself I was going to start at 12 o'clock and work my way around. Thanks to, I've been doing this all these years and it never even crossed my mind. I was always just starting randomly. Thanks to the guy, the follower, who said, dude, you should start like washing your wheels at 12 o'clock. When I was teaching Ryan how to wash, he said, then you would always remember where you started. This is a lambskin mitt that I'm in love with. They're 10 bucks a piece. I bring them in from the UK. I ship a few dozen a month back to the UK. For those of you, thanks for your support. From across the pond, across the ocean. Okay, I'll spray it off. So the process would be the same. The big difference for me, if I was, you know, gonna care and start these wheels from scratch, I probably wouldn't even do this on the car. I would remove them, coat them, start from the very beginning and work my way through them. So in this decontamination process, I would just remove the wheels either before or after the fact. Probably after. So this is Adams Tire and Rubber Cleaner. The other thing I would do is I would use a really heavy cleaner, something like stoners on here to remove any junk that might be on the tires in preparing them for Carfil Pearl application. These actually didn't have a lot of silicone junk on them, so that wasn't too bad. Yeah, so see our second application of our iron removal. We have very little, just a little drib there. So we've gotten it pretty well clean. So I think we're okay to rinse it. So I'll take you through this one here. It'd be nice to get some Brembos to get rid of these brakes. So the stool I'm sitting on, I'm gonna call Griots here shortly because I've got to work on my interior package and I use quite a few Griots products for that and glass. So I'm gonna be, I'll probably get these stools, but this is a Griots garage stool. I'm not sure who makes it, but somebody makes it for them, but they were the first to come out with it. It's nice. I think they have a padded seat for it now, which would be nice to get. It's actually not too uncomfortable even in its current form. So at least I haven't had a problem with it. You know, I've decided I'm going to stop fighting people on buckets. You know, you can't fix stupid. Like you can't convince somebody that wants to hate on it anyway, or me, or whatever it is I'm doing. But I have a bucket package that costs a lot of money because the buckets are not cheap and the dollies are not cheap. But this is a 6-gallon Letica bucket with a Gamma Seal lid, a grit guard inside of it, and then this has grit guards, bucket dolly, and I upgraded to 3-inch casters. They just roll a lot nicer. There's dual brakes. And this bucket here isn't 350 bucks, but the three of them together end up being that expensive. About 50 bucks of that is shipping. But I'm bringing these back here shortly or I guess bringing them here for the first time, I should say. We're going to start shipping them from here. So if you only want one bucket, you don't want to spend and buy the whole thing, I'm going to remove the auto shipping or the drop shipping fee out of it and just charge people whatever the shipping is. Because let's say I'm shipping it to Georgia, it's maybe 30 bucks to ship a 3-bucket package. But if I'm shipping it to California, it's 60 or 70 bucks to ship it. And so I just sort of pegged it at $45 of average shipping just to kind of cover my basis. But we'll make it more hopefully a little bit more economical, and then give people the ability to buy it however they want. The price of the buckets isn't going to come down, but you'll be able to buy it a la carte and kind of see how it's constructed. But like I said, I'm going to stop battling people on that. There's not really a battle to be had. Go try to buy it. And people all the time, they post, they're like, well, I built this for $220. I said, well, you didn't build the same thing. They usually have different buckets, or they'll have different casters, or they won't have the gamma seal. It'll just be different. I'm like, well, if you add up all the other stuff, then it's going to cost you pretty much the same, if not a little more. Because these buckets, the only place I've ever found them, you have to buy them 5 at a time, and you have to pay to have them shipped to you. So the buckets end up being like 23 bucks or 25 bucks a piece or something like that. And if you only need 3 of them, you had to buy 5 of them, so you got 2 extras. I think people forget that, you know, I'm just buying the stuff for whatever it costs, but I'm buying it in bulk, and then I just sell it for whatever the retail price was. I think a lot of people think that I'm buying it for nothing, for like $7, and then selling it for $300. I'd rather sell it for $120 and sell thousands of them than to sell 50 of them for whatever, you know, for $1,000. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's the last I'm going to say on that. I'm going to teach people and talk to people about the buckets, but I already didn't start at 12 o'clock. Shoot. Start here. It's hard to teach yourself a new procedure when you're chatting away about your $300 buckets. You end up getting on a tangent, not seeing some things that you otherwise would have seen, and everybody's yelling at me. Because that's one thing, again, if you're new here, I don't edit out the mistakes. I a lot of times prefer to leave the mistakes in, or I'm glad that I made the mistake. That way I can hopefully provide some value to the people watching and share what not to do. So they don't have to, oh shoot. We'll be okay. I blew this out anyway, and there's not really, so we'll be fine. This won't scratch. All right, let's do the same process we did here. Boom, 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 boom. So at least for pictures and videos, these will look good. You'll notice that I don't share a lot of, wow, look at how great this looks. We will do more before and after stuff on this car than I've done on other ones. But I don't like to do that because it's not real. You know, you see detailers always showing that, look how good this looks. Well, I could make this look good on camera right now, easily. Okay, so that wheel's done. Let's go talk about the exhaust a little bit, and then I'll finish up the wheels on. So this is my brand new Match Schnell / Eisenman Sport full exhaust. I just did the ESS tune today, so make sure to go check out that video. That was out a few days ago. This exhaust is ceramic coated. And then the Match Schnell center section is a dual resonator, so 2 resonators into X pipe and then catless. The problem, and I wasn't sure how this would go, but I wanted to try it out. The problem with the setup is that only having dual resonators and removing both cats makes this really raspy. So it's close, but just not quite there. I thought the Eisenman Sport, being it's a deeper toned type exhaust, again, I don't want something ghetto loud on this. I just want it to be aggressive, but not as aggressive as my GT3 RS, which is insane. So I wanted this to be a bit tamer, so that's why I went with the Sport version. I also don't want it to drone, but I did want to gain the power from removing the cats. So I thought, you know, I knew these baby little resonators, I knew there'd be a good chance that it could be raspy, but again, I thought the Eisenman would combat that because of how it normally sounds. Well, that didn't work. And so I'm going with Dynan Middle Racing, so I'm doing the Dynan middle section catless. It has 4 much more stout, bigger resonators and a 2.75 inch diameter pipe instead of a 2.5. That combined with this Eisenman, I'm almost certain is going to be the ticket. So just bear with me. I know that this was a little raspy. I was hoping it would work. And because I couldn't find a Dynan Middle Racing to buy, I could have done the Borla or something, but the Borla just isn't as nice. So I ended up with this setup, but I found somebody who just divine intervention stepped in and said, hey, he messaged me before I even put the video up, hey, I have a Dyna Middle Racing, I'm thinking about selling it. Do you know anybody who would want it? And I said, me, I'll buy it right now. And so we actually traded. He's taking this one, he wanted something a little louder, and I'm taking his, and then I'm going to combine the Middle Racing with the Iceman Sport, and we'll see. I think it should be good. So this has been on here for a couple of days. I just spray some wheel cleaner on there. Let's take our wheel cleaning tool, clean up the tips a little bit. I do the cleaning of the inside of the tips just to hope to keep it from then building up. I found that if I tend to do that, it tends to stay cleaner longer. Rather than doing gloss black tips, I did these ceramic coated. This is a ceramic paint, the high temp paint, I think, that I&D does to the Iceman exhaust. And that's the extent of what we need to do. So I really like how this looks. These are their traditional tips. They stick out perfectly. I got it nice and aligned. I'm pretty sure this is the exhaust. This is gonna stay. I may do the, whatever that thing is called, the RKP, little rear splitter thing. But I'm almost certain the Dynan, I need to keep my mouth shut about almost certain. I was almost certain the Match Snell combined with the Iceman Sport was gonna be great. Just not quite what I was looking for. So I'm gonna go clean the other wheels here, and we'll come back to you and start the decon process. Okay, so let's prep our foam cannon and our wash pad for, I'll tell the story about this here in a minute, but this is my generic bottle of my now private labeled Obsessed Garage Decontamination Soap. But I'll tell the story of why and how and what it is here in a minute. But I'm going to put 150 ml of the soap in my foam cannon, and we'll put 175. And I'm going to put some on here on this blank bottle. There's no scent in this. It's just, this is what this stuff smells like. Okay, so let's go get this set up. All right, so here's our rinse bucket filled up. This is my bucket filler, 24-inch T316 stainless. Still haven't been able to source these. The hose nozzle, the darn company is just not with it, man. They're really, you know, which is, I can respect. They're protecting their local distributor, and they're just not too keen on having some online goofball go out and promote the product. What they don't realize is that if we do that, if we go out and share it, and if we promote the product like this online and talk about it, then the local distribution gets to sell them too, because then more people know about it. But I don't know, they're just not interested in that. All right, so we've got the soap set up. Let's get our car foamed, and then we can set up the other bucket. So this soap has a pH of 10. So it's alkaline. It used to be called citrus wash. Foams pretty darn well. But this will help strip whatever's on the surface. Not completely, but to some extent. It should pull all this spray wax off of it though. Okay, so we have this on the surface. My philosophy is a little different on foaming. I want this as lubrication. So it's on the car, I'm gonna let it sit, let this do its thing, let this break down. This particular soap, I don't wanna let dry on the surface because it's not pH neutral and could leave, like especially on the shadow line trim and stuff, could leave spots. So, you know, we wanna work in, not in haste, but we wanna move. But I also wanna let it sit there for a little bit. I don't feel the need to rinse this off. We're gonna use this as part of our washing process. So let's fill our bucket. I'm gonna dump the rest of this in here. I'm gonna rinse this out pretty well because I don't want to decontaminate it later. You get some pretty awesome suds from this stuff. You can feel how basic, when I say basic, I mean like a base, not an acid, but a base, which you can always tell. Remember back from chemistry class, it feels really slimy, which is what will help break down the waxes, sealants, oils, things like that on the surface of the paint and preparing us for our then iron removal. So here's my philosophy on this. I want a soap that does the stripping part. You can argue whether this completely strips or not, but I want a different soap for this process than I would want for normal washing, right? I don't want to strip the stuff off the surface. I don't want to strip the wax or sealant or damage or degrade the coating or whatever I have on the surface of the car. But in this step, we want to prepare it for a whole new dialing in or whole new polishing process. So I want to try to remove some of it. And so what I found is through the process of this soap combined with iron removal, combined with a clay or auto scrub, we end up completely removing whatever, short of a coating, but whatever waxes or sealants or silicones or whatever is on the surface of the paint, it all comes off. So years ago, I was doing what many of you are probably still using, which is fine. I was using whatever shampoo I had, car soap, and adding, actually years ago I used Dawn, right? Dawn first. Of course, the issue with Dawn is Dawn leaves, think about what your hands feel like after you use Dawn, always leaves something behind. There's always a leftover, like a real heavy soap residue. So although Dawn works, it's really not very cheap, you know, in comparison to car soap. You know, if you use a decent amount of Dawn, it's not cheaper than car soap. It's just maybe even a little bit more expensive. I don't know, I haven't priced Dawn in a little while. But that's what I used first. And then what I started doing was putting, a good amount of all-purpose cleaner in with my car soap. And then over the years, I've used some of these other type of strippers like, I've used Purple Power here, but that's a real popular one. Or whatever other Walmart off-the-shelf degreaser type product you can use. But the problem with those, I don't like those as much. I don't feel like I don't get the lubrication that I'm looking for, because even though I want to strip the surface, and even though this car is a little jacked up right now, I don't want to damage it more than I have to. It's just right when I started sharing videos, so credit to making videos on YouTube and being a part of now a community. When I first started sharing stuff on Renlist, there was a gentleman who suggested, he's like, look, I don't care if you take my advice or not, but this one product is the standard. This is what you need to get as your stripping soap or your polishing prep soap. It's called Chemical Guys Citrus Red. That's what he called it. I know most people don't like Chemical Guys that are, professional grade. I wasn't a Chemical Guys fan, still am not. I mean, I'm not a hater, so it's fine. I get what they're doing. I just, I'm not a fan of their products. But you've got to try this. This is from their old school, sort of one of their original products from their professional line. You want to use that to strip the car. So I bought some. It was great. Awesome. Loved it. Had a gallon for 3 or 4 or 5 years now. And, was doing its thing, using it. But I would suggest it to people, and they stopped making it, so people couldn't get it. When I started the retail store, the Obsessed Garage store, I called them and said, hey, I'd like to order, if I can order a few 100 gallons of Citrus Red or Citrus Wash, would you make it? Now, Citrus Wash is not Citrus Wash and Gloss, completely opposite products. Citrus Wash and Gloss is a pH neutral wax infused soap. It has wax in it. This is an alkaline, which will lead me to my next point here. Just calling it citrus is stupid. But this is an alkaline, a basic soap designed to use to strip the surface of oils and greases, and the byproduct is it does strip wax and sealant as well, to some extent. It breaks it down. And so I asked them if I buy them, will they make it? And they were making small batches for me, one-off batches. But I knew it would be short-lived. So I always told everybody, I said, look, I have it now, and you saw I was out of stock of it all the time, because it is a good product, and it's good for this process. So it was always out of stock, or out of stock more often than not. And so I knew it sometime, this would become a problem. And I have a decontamination package that I can never offer to people because we never have it. Because we're always missing the key ingredient, which is the soap. So I kept calling. My dad kept calling. You know, email, call, and getting the runaround. And finally they just said, look, you can buy this. We're not making small batches anymore. You can buy this in drums. We'll make it for you. We'll have our blender blend it, and you can buy it in drums. Like, sweet. I think what they were trying to do was get rid of me. I said, sweet, I'll do it. How many do I gotta buy? So I bought 220 gallons, 4 55-gallon drums, and then it's still nothing. Then all of a sudden one day it just showed up. And then I got an email saying, look, this is it. This is your last batch. We're not gonna make this anymore. So I asked them, said, hey, can I buy your labels? I don't have labels. I'd like to put some labels on it. He said, no, this isn't worth it to us, which, I understand. We're just not interested in making this product. And so I had to go figure out what I was going to do next. Should I start recommending we put APC or, because I had plenty to hold me over for several years, but, what was I going to suggest to people who were asking me what to do? And that's when I have a buddy who sent me a text, said, bro, if you want that soap, I can get it for you. And by the way, on the bottle, on the 55-gallon drums, he would read, I forget what the name of it, was some generic name, and it was called a tunnel wash. So what this stuff is, this is a soap designed to strip the car in a tunnel wash, touchless wash type scenario. He was able to blend the product for me, and I said, well, I want to make it my own. I don't want to change the formula. I don't want to change how it works. But what I want to change is the name. Calling a basic soap citrus wash doesn't make any frickin' sense. And why are we making it orange to call it citrus wash? You don't want an acid to wash. You want a base. An acid would be abrasive to some extent. And it's not citrus based. There's nothing to do with citrus. So I'm going to change the name to Decontamination Soap. I'm going to make some really killer labels. I'm going to chase. This is going to force me to go chase and find really cool bottles. I'm still working on that. But the problem was, when I started the process, I'm like, I got these 220 gallons sitting in my garage. People need it. They want it. It doesn't exist. And so that's when I came up with the idea that, hey, I've got all this soap. I've got all these people that want it. Let's do something cool. Let's do something fun. It'll be fun for us all this whole community, everybody to look back at someday. I'm going to call it the Signature Edition. Obsessed Garage Signature Edition. I signed up every bottle. I did a limited, just 300 32-ounce bottles, 125 gallons. I bottled it myself, literally pumped the bottle. Michelle and I pumped every bottle ourselves. Signed each one. Printed out a label on my darn printer, sent it out to you guys while I was working on this purple version that we have now. And so the thought process is Decontamination Soap. I make it purple because iron turns purple. So decontamination process, when I think of decon, I think of iron removal. And so I made it purple. I didn't add a scent or anything to it. Didn't change the formula. And here we go, we got it. Now the problem is I'm still working on labels, so if you want this, I have it. Okay, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. I normally would do the engine bay first here, but I'm gonna wrap up this and call this episode 1. My suggestion would be that you dial in the engine bay first before doing the soap. I got all excited about sharing my new soap with you that I got sidetracked. So we'll call this episode 1, where I cleaned up the wheels, we decontaminated or stripped the surface. I have DI water on here now, so I'm able to take my time, clean the engine bay, not worry about getting water spots everywhere. So make sure to check out episode 2, which will be engine bay cleaning and the next step in the decon process, which will be iron removal and then claying. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the floor.